Did you say speak for yourself? Yeah, that's what I heard. Get out. No. Sergeant at Arms, Robert Cordell, Brian Devon, Jake Duran, Dwight Green, Chris Moore. Why are you looking at me? Okay, I know why she's looking at me, because I'm getting ready to announce his wonderful pages. And if I butcher your name, I apologize in advance. Tito Babcock, Bobby Kroon, Taylor Mayau, somewhere in there. Keshav Patel, Olu Rouse. Thank you. Appreciate you for being here today and helping out. And if you don't learn anything in this committee, it's not my fault. Because I don't know if I'll learn anything in this committee. No, we'll do fine. Glad to have everybody here today. You didn't know I was a stand-up, did you?
Oh, I think you're hilarious.
Listen at that. All right. Today we have House Bill 750, and if I'm correct, Senator Overcash will be presenting. Senator Overcash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is identical language to Senate Bill 737 that this body considered, this committee and our full body. So I will not labor this. We've debated this in multiple committees. We've debated it on the Senate floor and passed it through. This is an identical House bill to that. It's related to ESG factors in state contracts, and it also has the section where we're dealing with the state pension plan. And I don't remember exactly where we were last time we were before Pensions Committee, but I do know that the Treasurer's Office is supportive of this now, versus there were some questions earlier when this bill was first filed. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions? Senator Waddell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at and reviewing some of the concerns that I've received, and I just need some clarity concerning our investment. Are we, when we think of institutional shareholders and the amount of return, have we looked at several ways of acquiring this and so that we're getting the best return for our money?
Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, that's exactly what this does. It directs and encourages the Treasurer's Office to continue to have the absolute best pecuniary returns that we can get for our state employees and our retirees.
Any other questions?
Does it? Yes. Does it?
Senator
Does
Waddell,
it
follow up.
follow up? Does it do anything? Because when we think about the free market, what's happening in the free market with our rates?
With our rates?
Yes.
I think the best I can say is that does not that's not addressed in this, Senator. It could impact. If you mean rate of return, I'm
Yes.
hopeful that this law, if enacted, will maximize the rate of return for those within the pension plan.
Okay.
Any other questions? Senator Chaudhary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions I wanted to ask Senator Overcash. Thank you, Senator Overcash. A couple of questions, just clarifying the bill language, because I think as we debated this on the Senate floor, I had expressed some concerns about the confusion and application of some of these terms. I understand the application of these terms to the retirement system. I'm a little bit more puzzled about its application to state agencies, so maybe you can help me understand this. But can you define? Well, let me start with this. So, can you explain how either ESG or ETI would apply to a state agency in the hiring, firing, or evaluating employees? And so, let me just give you an example. I mean, does the Department of Administration's historically underutilized business program fall under this language?
No, I don't believe it does under the definition of ESG in subsection A. I do not.
So you don't believe that falls under the social aspect of it?
No, Senator, I do not.
Okay, follow up.
Follow up.
Could you give me an example of how, let's say, economically targeted investments, what's an example of that as it relates to the hiring, firing, or evaluating of employees?
On the ETI side, I can't give you an example off the top of my head. What this first section is designed to do, and it certainly does deal with hiring, firing, and evaluating employees, much like the DEI bill that we've discussed in this chamber. But it also goes in toward awarding of state contracts, and the majority of the issues that I think we would see in this state would be the awarding of state contracts. We don't want those based on factors other than what's the appropriate contract for the appropriate businesses for that award to be made, and not to delve into these other factors.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Follow up. Yes.
So, Senator Overcash, I'm just going to go back to my initial question. So, what is the definition of an economically targeted investment? Because I agree with you. We've already had a bill, I think, that deals with DEI as it relates to hiring, firing, and evaluating employees. I would argue that that's probably sufficient enough to address that. But to me, the definition of ETI in this bill seems to be misplaced. It just doesn't make any sense.
I can only point you to the language of subsection A. ESG or ETI means using a set of standards to screen potential investments based on the perceived impact to the environment and to the social relationships between a company's employees and the community. The term also includes how a company's leadership is structured in support of those standards. So I would stand by the language of the bill.
Mr. Chair, can I have one follow-up and then
Yes,
a
sir.
quick
Follow
comment?
up.
So, Senator O'Cash, I appreciate your response. Let me just ask you one other question related to governance, which is part of ESG. And to your point in Section A of the bill, it says the term also includes how a company's leadership structure is structured in support of those standards. So just as an example, if an investment manager decides they want to hire or they want to put a member on the board of directors that's an expert in coal mining safety because the investment price plummets due to coal mining accidents, right? And this is a real life situation. We have many companies that go out of compliance, and you want to have a director that is an expert in compliance. Does that constitute governance of a publicly traded company?
Senator, I don't believe that would be barred by this law whatsoever.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chair, just a very quick comment.
Go right ahead.
I would beg to defer that, my worry is that the ESG definition would apply in that instance. And Senator Overcash, I think if we want to meet the best rate of return, I think we can't overlook the importance that governance plays on a company board of directors. I will also say that, based on my time at the Treasurer's office, economically targeted investments could be investments that geographically target a place. And so, as an example, the Treasurer's office has established a North Carolina Innovation Fund that was a $250 million innovation fund that was designed to directly invest in companies and co-invest with funds that had a tie to the state of North Carolina. And that had not only did that fund beat the rate of return, but it also created jobs. And so I am worried that we are going to prohibit the Treasurer's office from creating these funds that can both have a successful rate of return as well as creating jobs. And lastly, I will just point out, Mr. Chair, that the irony is not lost on me. We have a $1.4 billion fund that is the similarly sounding North Carolina Innovation Fund that we've allocated $1.4 billion. And while I support the concept, I think the amount is too large. This bill actually prohibits a similar fund from being created by the Treasurer's office that could be complementary. So Senator Overcash, it may have not been the intent to prohibit economically targeted investments, but I think I understand the intent around ESG based on the discussions and debates we've seen in other states. But again, I would make the suggestion that it might work to remove ETI from this definition.
Any other questions, comments? Senator Alexander.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move at the appropriate time that we approve this bill.
Senator Meyer.
Thank you, Senator Ford. Senator Overcash, just following up on your responses to Senator Chaudhary, what would this bill apply to? What are examples of the types of companies that would have that structure? What are the types of economically targeted investments that this would apply to?
Wells Fargo has canceled a prominent Florida gun dealer's accounts. Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America have all joined the Net Zero Banking Alliance, committing to slash their financed carbon emissions in the power sector by 60% to 70%. There are other examples of this, and that's not to say anything critical about our banking institutions, but the fact is we need to award state contracts, we need to hire, fire, and evaluate people and businesses based on merit, based on ability, and we need to have our pension plan that's designed for the top pecuniary interest, and that's what this bill does.
Senator Ford, might make a comment?
Go right ahead.
I'm pretty sure our great corporate citizens, Wells Fargo and Bank of America, would disagree with the position that the senator just took. Thank you.
Further comments from the committee? Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Just identify yourself. We appreciate it.
Sam Watts, North Carolina Department of State Treasurer. We just wanted to share with you that the Treasurer endorsed this bill publicly yesterday, and he wants to thank the sponsors, Senator Overcash and Senator Craven, Senator Daniel on the Senate side, and Representative Carnes, and Neil Jackson, and Destin Hall, and Jason Sain, and Jennifer Balcom, who ended up as a surprise getting deeply involved in the bill from the House side. We appreciate working with everybody. It did take some tweaking to get the language back to a neutral fiduciary standard on Section 2. We greatly appreciate that because our money in the Treasurer's office is not red or blue. It's all green, and we want more of it for our retirees and taxpayers so that we can do things like pay for cost of living adjustments and invest and make the return that the General Assembly wants us to make on our funds. So we greatly appreciate the Section 2 taking any whiff of the ability to put political decision making into our investing out of the statutes, and so we just want to endorse that to you, confirm it is identical to the version that the Senate already passed, and so we commend it for your support.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, Senator Alexander moves that House Bill 750 be given a favorable report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. The ayes have it. Motion is adopted, and with a re-referral to rules, committee is adjourned.